Hey guys, Lisa from Stubbornly Crafty Patterns here to walk you through some of the trickier parts of the Knotty Bag. It's a simple bag with pleats at the bottom and a zipper pocket or slip pocket option for the inside. It has a sash that you can add and tie a little cute bow in the front, or you can leave that off. Let's get started. First, let's go over the cuff or the top part of the bag. Take your two cuff pieces and place them right sides together. So just along the two outside edges using our 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then fold the top edge of the cuff down and line it up with the bottom edge, making a tube. Line up the raw edges along the bottom and pin them in place starting at the side seams. You want to line those up first. And then just continue to pin all the way around. Take it to your sewing machine and sew all along the end we just pinned, approximately 1/8 inch from the edge. We are sewing the raw edges together just to keep it so it doesn't shift on us later. Perfect. Now I'll go over how to attach the handles. You'll need a ruler, your handles, cuffs, your cuff, and some pins. Place your cuff down on your table laying flat with the two seams on the outside edges and grab your first handle, and using your ruler measure in 3 inches from the outside edge and place your first handle along the ruler and pin in place with the raw edges along the raw edge of your cuff at the bottom. So all the raw edges are on the same side. And I just used 2 pins on the bottom and 2 pins on the top to hold it in place. I like to overlap the bottom edge of my handle just a little bit so when I sew the bag together it's a little more sturdy. And next I pull the other end of that same strap over to the opposite side of your cuff. Make sure the strap is not twisted and then pin it 3 inches in from that side as well. Now once that's done, flip your cuff over and repeat with the second handle on the opposite side. I just used the first strap as my guide for placement this time instead of measuring in, just make it a little bit faster and easier. Pin them as well. Next we need to tack the bottom edge of our strap in place. I just use 1/8 inch seam allowance and just sew a quick line to hold the strap along the bottom in place. And you just repeat that with all 4 ends. Just trim your tails as you go and take your pins out. And then flip your cuff over. So now we're sewing along the top edge. I'm changing my machine to a top stitch foot for this step, but your regular foot works great too. Top stitch all the way around the top of your cuff, catching the straps as you go. With my top stitching foot, it catches on the straps, so I lift the foot up to sew over the straps as I go. So if you're like, why is she lifting it up? That is why. I like to use matching thread as much as I can, because the thread does show, as I like it to blend in. After you sew your first line all the way around, you can sew a second line, like an 1/8 inch down from the first one. It gives it a little bit more of a finished look. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. It's just really personal preference. Trim your tails. And here I'm just showing what it should look like when you are all done with this step. I've got my top stitch line, the straps are attached, and it's looking good. Alright, let's go over the zipper. Here are the steps for the zipper pocket. You need one side of your bag's lining and your pocket lining and your zipper. You also need your ruler, and a friction pen is what I prefer. Flip your pocket so the wrong side of the fabric is facing up. From one of the short ends, measure down 1 inch and draw a line. I'm using my friction pen, and it took a while for the ink to start flowing, so that is why I went over it a million times. From that line, measure down 3/8 of an inch and draw a second line. Take your ruler to the side, measure in 1 inch again from that end, and draw a line just within that. It's just, we're making a rectangle, and then 3/8 inch from that line. You make another mark and then repeat on the opposite side. Next, we need to add some small V's in the smaller boxes of our marks on just the ends. As I'm showing here, with the tips of the V's towards the outside. Then you can add a dotted line down the center of our drawn rectangle, or just know that the center is where we will be cutting later. Now take your lining and fold it in half to find the center point, and repeat it with your pocket lining as well, just to help us with placement. Measure down 1 inch from the top of your lining, and that is where we will be pinning our pocket lining with our drawn marks on the top. Line up the center points that we just marked by folding it, and that will just help with placement. Once it's pinned, we'll be sewing around the rectangle we've drawn just along the outside line. Sew on the line, making sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end. Keep your needle in the down position as you lift your foot to swivel your fabric to turn. Perfect. Now just remove your pins and trim your tails. Next, take a sharp pair of scissors and cut down the center dotted line. When you come to the smaller boxes on the end with your V's, cut your V's diagonally following your drawn mark as close as you can without cutting into your stitches. So here I am just cutting along that V as close as I can. Help it look nice and crisp when we turn it right side out. Take your pocket lining and push it inside and press it to make your opening nice and crisp. I did take it to my iron, but that part is not shown, so I just pull it all the way out. It's a little bit tricky just to get it to lay nice and flat. And then I pin it to keep my lining in place so it won't shift as I sew. I'm definitely an over pinner. It works for me, but as you can see, I definitely take my time with my pinning. Next, grab your zipper. I like to make little hand stitches with a needle and thread at the ends of the zipper tape to keep them in place. Put your zipper behind your opening with the zipper pull on the left. Pin the zipper in place, or there are glues and tapes you can get to help keep your zipper from moving on you as well. They're pretty handy. You want both metal ends of the zipper to line up with the ends of your opening so we don't run them over when we sew around the perimeter. Now that our zipper is in place, we just top stitch around the perimeter. I'm using a top stitching foot again. When you come to the zipper pull, remember to back stitch at the beginning. When you come to the zipper pull, keep your needle in the down position, lift your foot, and using a pen or scissors, just push the zipper pull under your sewing foot so you can continue sewing on the other side. You will have to do this twice as you go. Make sure your lining fabric doesn't get caught in your stitches as you go as well. Alright, once you're done sewing your zipper in place, I like to open it to the middle and then flip your lining over and grab the bottom of your lining fabric and bring it up to meet the top. Pin all along the edges, starting at the top corners. You are just pinning the lining fabric to itself. You do not want to include your bag's lining in this step. And here I'm just showing exactly where we'll be sewing along those 3 edges. And I'm just showing that it is not attached to anything but itself. Alright, take it to your machine. We're using our 1/4 inch seam allowance again. And we're sewing along those 3 pinned edges. Move your bag's lining out of the way as you go, and just remove your pins as you go as well. If you want a even more finished look, you can go over it after you finish this step and just zigzag along the raw edges of your bag lining as well. Just remember to back stitch at the beginning and the end, and that is all. That's all it takes. And here's what it looks like. That is it for this tutorial. I hope that helps. You can find Stubbornly Crafty patterns at stubbornlycrafty.com or Stubbornly Crafty on Etsy. Thanks for watching.